Well, this programme comes to you from the heart of London. What to make of it? A city of great wealth and gleaming skyscrapers, also one where it is impossible now to walk more than a few hundred metres without passing people sleeping in shop doorways. Through the years, London has stood for democratic freedom and colonial exploitation and imperial capital. It's always changing, though. Let's talk about that to Claire Armitstead, who's the editor of a new book, Tales of Two Londons, Stories from a Fractured City, which I should say is raising money for charity as well. Welcome to you. Everything is unique, but is there something special about London that's different to Manchester or Glasgow or Belfast?
Well, yes, I think every city is unique, but London is very, very documented. So when I started, my publisher first asked me to do it, I thought, what story can I tell that's new? So I went back to the population censuses, and in 2011, 37% of Londoners in that census were born outside London. 37%. And then in 2015, there was another survey in which it emerged that Poles had become the biggest population born outside the UK but living in the UK. So I thought, well, let's follow that and see what happens if you follow that population in the contents of the book. And it leads you to some really interesting places. And we're talking about born outside. We're not talking about black and minority ethnic people. We're talking about the people who actually have just arrived. So you deal with how people can express themselves, where they're allowed to express themselves, what sort of stories they tell, and above all, what stories they have in their heads. And the conclusion I came to, which might seem very simple, but it was sort of new to me, is that London it's actually the sum total of what everybody, all its citizens, have in their heads, which can be African massacres, can be, you know, things happening in Poland, can be all sorts of things that actually don't obviously belong to London.
I mean, your title is Tales of Two Cities, obviously playing a bit on Charles Dickens there, but, I mean, the underlying message of that is that it's of extremes. It's either rich or poor, that there isn't a kind of middle England in there. Is that fair?
Well, there is a middle England as well. There's everything. But the problem is we don't see each other. And one of the strongest pieces in the book is by an opera director called Penny Woolcock and a local youth worker in North London. And she describes her daily trips going down to the shop to buy olives, and in that sort of middle-class way. And he's describing what it is like for the kids that he works with on a project, who are these, you know, there have been eight young people killed with knives and guns in the capital in the last month. He's working with those kids, and they're treading in exactly the same footprint as she's treading as a middle-class person living in North London. And, you know, I think that this is the problem in London. There are all these lives being lived, and there are just glass walls between us. We don't see each other.
I mean, London has got comparatively rich compared to the rest of the country. I mean, dramatically richer.
For the people who've got money.
But overall, in terms of the turnout, I mean, that's why people come here from Poland, isn't it? Because there is money.
Yes, but a lot of them are doing really menial work. So one of the characters in this is a guy called Marcin, who's working actually out at Dartford in a waste disposal unit, a massive, great waste disposal unit, where they dispose of all London's rubbish. And it's run by Albanians and people who never actually get into the centre of town. All their money goes back home. They're living this hideous life. And then on the other hand, you've got people who are absolutely thriving. So it's not a story all of hardship at all.
And what's the conclusion? That it's viable or cruising for bruising?
My conclusion is that it is viable, provided we find new mechanisms to listen to what's actually happening. And, you know, the stuff that happened with Grenfell, the stuff that happened with all these, you know, these sort of attacks, is because we're not listening to each other. We're not actually, the maps have broken down.
Well, perhaps the book will increase understanding. It's called Stories from a Fractured City, Tales of Two Londons, and the money raised will go to English Pen. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Time now for the weather.